What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm building the ultimate small form factor gaming PC build inside the ASUS ROG Z11, featuring a 3080 and Ryzen 5 5600X. As if that wasn't enough, I've got an insane amount of RAM and storage from today's video sponsors, HyperX and Kingston, with the whole build today being the perfect Christmas alternative to the PS5, especially since that's out of stock everywhere. Without any further ado though, let's jump into it. Now, as always, I'm going to kick off by installing the RAM and the CPU and our M.2 drive today into the motherboard choice. This isn't going to be a build guide or tutorial as such, because I've got plenty of those on the channel. Now, the CPU choice today is the Ryzen 5 5600X. It's AMD's latest and greatest Ryzen 5 chip. Yes, you could go Ryzen 7 or even Ryzen 9 with the cooling that this case is going to provide, but for gaming and even a bit of streaming, this is going to be the perfect choice, especially since so much content creation nowadays is actually reliant on your graphics card just as much as your processor. Now, in terms of the RAM choice today, I'm super excited for this. Got any scissors? Ha! Man with the scissors is on his way. Woo! And that's because this RAM kit from today's video sponsor, HyperX, is absolutely insane. Now, you can get this in a range of different configurations and speeds. This 3600 MHz kit is perfect for our Ryzen CPU today, and the 32GB DIMMs mean that on this motherboard's 2 RAM DIMM slots, we can still get about 64 GB of memory. Is that overkill? Yes it is. Is that a problem? No, it is absolutely not. Now, this RAM is so heavy. Like, as far as RAM's concerned, this is probably the heaviest memory I've ever used, but that's probably down to all the memory chips for that 32GB DIMM, and look at all this kind of like machined metal, aluminium. It looks really, really fantastic. Plus the RGB heat spreader on the top is going to tie in perfectly with our system today. We're going to just install our memory. A little something like this. There's 1 and there's 2, before finally going ahead and installing an M.2 drive today, which can only mean one thing. We need a teeny tiny little screwdriver. Woo! Got some applause, guys. Of course, you've got to join in, mate. The microphone's got to pick this up. Team Geekamedia's on fire today. Right, do anyone know where the screwdriver is? To install our M.2 drive, we first need to remove the kind of M.2 heatsink we've got going on here. A little something a bit like this, which nicely makes room for our M.2 drive. Specifically, Kingston have sent over their KC2500, which at best guess is probably better than the 2000. This M.2 drive as well is going to give you those super fast NVMe speeds, and it says it's got a 5-year warranty, so you haven't got to worry about this thing. SSDs are, of course, a lot more reliable than hard drives, and this super fast drive is going to make sure we can boot up into our games as quick as possible today. There's no kind of glamorous way to open this. Nailed it. And just a little something like this, that heatsink cover is going to go back on, and not only is that going to kind of protect our drive and kind of keep it looking pretty, it's also going to make sure it stays nice and cool. Okay then, the motherboard assembly is starting to look pretty insane actually, especially given how small this motherboard is today, and that means we can go ahead and install it into the chassis. Now then, this is the ROG Z11. I've read a lot about this case online, and I'm actually pretty excited to use it. As far as ITX cases goes, I know this thing is by no means the smallest, but it is crammed with features, and I mean, let's be honest, the next gen consoles, if that's what we're comparing this to, are not exactly small either. Whoa! Okay, this is awesome. So we've got this on the box which says Join the Republic. Okay, oh. We've got an included accessories box with whatever that is. A power supply extension cable for routing the power supply in the case. A converter plate, so if you wanted to use a small form factor SFX unit, you can, but we're going to stick with ATX today. They give you like a screwdriver. Look at that. That's going straight on eBay. No, I'm joking. It's not going on eBay. Don't worry. Please don't come after me. Your standard bag of screws, we will leave that to one side because that is going to be useful pretty immediately, and just looks like some more mounting options for like hard drives or storage drives or that kind of thing. Comes in like quite a nice ROG protective bag. I mean, this case is definitely not cheap, but at least you kind of feel like you're getting a bit of a user experience to match. Whoa! Yeah. Mate, you seen what's inside this? What is going on? Look, it's like a figurine, ain't it? It's like a...
That's a person.
Well, hopefully not alive. No. How do you get in this thing? No way. I've never been so excited about a case. I do feel like a kid at Christmas, genuinely. This is quite exciting. Whoa! ASUS include this, which is 7. One of the Cyber Samurai. Oh my God. This is so going on our set. Right, now all we really need to do at this point is try and figure out how on earth you remove this top panel. We sort of like got halfway there. Right, if I must. Not happy. Bit of feedback, ASUS. I'm loving the case so far, but I can't get into it. I mean, first observations. I've read reviews of this that say it's like absolutely massive. I mean, it's hardly tiny, but it's not huge. And airflow-wise, for really high-spec hardware, I think this could be a really great option. Let's then install this motherboard and we'll worry about the top side panel a little bit later. So I've kind of figured out how this works. We need to pop our motherboard in first off, a little something like this, which is pretty easy considering it only needs 4 screws. Right then, with this case a little bit more figured out than a moment ago, the motherboard's now in and I'm gonna pop the cooler in next. Because we want the full length for our graphics card, we're gonna go down here at the bottom. To do that, we just need to remove the plate that kind of lies in the way, which in this case is actually a little bit complicated. Every single side panel seems to have a screw somewhere that you wouldn't expect to have a screw. I mean, it's not awful, but like, it's not particularly user-friendly. Right then, there we go. The feet are off, which means we can now go ahead and remove these screws, which will make way for that radiator mounting at the bottom. Bloody Nora. I'm getting hot and bothered. The hoodie's got to go. Okay then, with that now sorted, I'm going to go ahead and install the cooler. It's the Master Liquid ML240p Mirage from Cooler Master. And as I say, it's going to go at the bottom, just like so. I'm going to pop the radiator in first and then worry about the CPU water block just afterwards. Now that the actual radiator itself is in place, I'm also just going to pop in a couple of 120mm fans to make sure that the air that comes into the case can then exhaust out the case down the bottom. I'm also going to go ahead then and install the water block today. The back plate is one of those here's what I made earlier situations, and then the cooler simply just clamps on top with a few of these screws. Okay then, we're now going to go ahead and install the power supply, probably the most boring component of any build, but this case does thankfully support a full-sized ATX unit, and that is quite important because if you're going for a 3080 or a 3090 or a 6900 XT, you're going to need a lot of wattage, 750, 850 watts, which can get really expensive in an SFX form factor. Specifically today then, I've gone for the Corsair CF750M. This unit's actually a white unit, but I'm probably going to throw in some cable extensions, maybe even some RGB ones a bit later too, so we haven't got to worry about that. What we do know though is that this fully modular 80+ bronze certified unit comes in at a great price point and is a perfect fit for today's system. Okay then, we're all now pretty much ready to install the graphics card. There's a bit of cabling and wiring to do. I'll do that off camera, but if you'd like to see a guide of how to do all of that in detail, you can check out my recent build guide video in the card section here. For now though, this is the ASUS TUF 3080. This is an absolute powerhouse. Now this is a much better buy in my opinion than the 3090 card. It is quite a bit cheaper. I know stock is still a little bit I know stock is still a little bit all over the place, so do bear with me, do bear with retailers, but I'll link latest pricing and availability in the description down below. Now this TUF card is a card I've used before. I'll link all the content that I've done with this TUF card in the cards section now, so you can go and check that out if you so desire. There we go, and this is actually going to mount in today's case in quite a unique fashion, but it's going to be visible and on show through the front of the chassis, which I love. If we pull back the notch on the PCI clip, like so, I think it basically just slides on in. I think. Right, it is in. I don't know if we can see that very well. And there we have it. We just need to give it a little bit of power, but ultimately, once we've got the side panels on, this thing's gonna look just a little bit insane. A big thanks to Kingston for sponsoring today's video and ASUS for sending all the parts out. But before we boot this machine up and see how well it performs, let's see how it looks in typical GeekaWhat fashion with a glam montage. Roll the clip.
without your love.
Okie dokie, now we've seen just how good this system looks when it's all powered up, and of course that process with the complicated case of putting it together. Let's dive in and see exactly how it performs in a load of the most popular and AAA titles. Kicking things off straight away with Death Stranding at 4K high settings with DLSS set to quality mode, and that's giving you 120, 111 and 96 FPS for the average 90 and 99th percentile results, which is the measure I try and use in all of my benchmarks. Grand Theft Auto 5 is next up today then, 4K with pretty much high settings across the board, tested in the game's inbuilt benchmarking mode, making this particularly easy to compare to any of the other videos on my channel, gives you 93, 88 and 76 FPS respectively. Control is next up today, 4K high settings with DLSS at 1080p, but the, of course, screen resolution at 4K with RTX enabled, gives you 94, 87 and 74 FPS respectively. This is one of those titles that gives you a great visual experience with ray tracing without blasting your frame rate into oblivion, as we'll see with Cyberpunk a little bit later. Apex Legends is next up today then, one of the most popular Battle Royale titles that stood the test of time, and here at 4K medium to high settings with our frame rate set to unlimited in the Origin launcher, gives you 127, 104 and 90 for the average 90 and 99th percentile results, once again as I said at 4K. Tuned down to 1440p you're going to see nearer 180, 1080p you're going to see nearer 220, 230, so all in all some really strong results here. Call of Duty's Warzone is the first COD on my list today before we look at the new Black Ops Cold War, and here at 1440p with high settings, no ray tracing of course supported in the free Battle Royale mode, high particle quality, all that good stuff, you're looking at 116, 99 and 94, which are all very good frame rate results for 1440p high in Call of Duty Warzone. Talking of really good frame rates, Call of Duty's Black Ops Cold War, the initial campaign mission at 1440p high settings with DLSS and RTX both enabled. DLSS, of course, Nvidia's AI-powered tech that helps to counter some of the frame rate negative side effects of ray tracing, and here you're looking 74, 65 and 55 FPS respectively for the average 90 and 99th percentile measures. Talking of some really good results, Overwatch is next up, 4K high settings, gives you 200 FPS, nearly read that as 2000 on the screen then, with 171 and 145, bringing up the rear for the 90 and 99th percentile results. CSGO is next today then, 4K high settings at 231 frames per second on average is kind of insane. And yes, I did set the frame rate max to 0 to basically unlimit our frame rate in CSGO and stop us being stuck below, I think it's about 300 frames per second. Doom Eternal had no such issues today though, 4K with the Ultra Nightmare preset on, and of course VSync disabled. We turn VSync off for all our games to get that maximum FPS. And here you're looking 146, 132 and 128. That's more like it. They're the kind of numbers we are after. Talking of really high numbers, Rainbow Six Siege 4K medium settings and testing in the game's inbuilt benchmarking mode gives you 250, 233 and 212 for the average 90 and 99th percentile results. And what's more, because it's a benchmark mode and the result is exactly reliable and exactly simulated in the same way, you can go and compare this against my other builds to see exactly how they perform as well. Valorant is next up today then, and the first of the titles at 1440p high settings to break the 400 frames per second barrier. 406 FPS on average with 346 and 292 is an insane result. I don't even think you can buy monitors with enough refresh rate to saturate Valorant to its fullest extent. Really crazy stuff here. Watch Dogs Legions is next up then, 1440p high settings with RTX on and DLSS on, gives you 104, 82 and 67, so very respectable results, sticking above that 100 FPS at pretty much all times. Seems like a bad result compared to Valorant's 400 frames per second, but as a general rule of thumb, 100 FPS is giving you an incredible gaming experience and definitely going to give you the edge over your 60 FPS pleb counterparts. Cyberpunk 2077 is next up today then, 1440p at high settings with both RTX on and DLSS on. RTX on Ultra, DLSS on Auto, gives you 75 FPS on average with 68 and 56 for the 90 and 99th percentile results. you'll find yourself breaking the 100 FPS barrier with RTX off, but keeping DLSS enabled. And Cyberpunk is a little bit of a, well, it's not a great game to run, as has been seen in the press a lot this week. I'm not really going to comment any further on it, but I think the way to play with Cyberpunk is to just kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best, really. It's kind of the scientific answer to that one. Finally then, the last game on the list today is Fortnite. Everyone loves a bit of Fortnite, and anyone who thinks differently should look at my audience retention graphs. You all skip to Fortnite, you want to see how it performs, and that's why I'm just chatting and wasting your time. I'm joking. 1440p high with RTX on first. We're going to turn it off in just a second. Gives you 100 FPS on average, with 86 and 68 for the 90 and 99th percentile results. And that is with DLSS enabled as well, which is giving us that nice frame rate boost. Turning RTX off then, staying at a higher resolution actually here, 4K medium settings with RTX off and DLSS on performance, boost the average FPS by over 70 frames per second. 178, 136 and 121 for the average 90 and 99th percentile results create an esports level gaming experience at 4K in Fortnite. With that being said though, that pretty much wraps it up, not only for the benchmarks today, but the whole video. I know, very sad. If you want to see more from me though, check out some of the end cards on your screen now. Make sure you get subscribed and ding dong that notification bell so you never miss another GeekaWhat video. Thank you very much for watching though, and as always, we will see you, hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next one.